Here's some big news to go over today. The Bengals have made multiple moves and ahead of an absolutely crucial game on Sunday. The Bengals continue to make moves, but not only that, we have some big updates, including an update surrounding Joe Flacco and his availability ahead of the game on Sunday. We're going to get all that down in this episode, but before I get into it all, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, quick reminder, hit that subscribe button. Your guys' support has been unbelievable, and despite the Bengals losing last week, your guys' support hasn't wavered there at all. But folks, a lot to go over today, and obviously the Bengals are a few days away here from the most important game of the year, the most important game in a very long time, simply because of the fact that with Joe Flacco's injury here, potentially keeping him out of the game on Sunday, there is a lot of question marks heading into this game. But first, let's start with the Bengals making multiple moves. Now, I covered in a video a few days ago some more moves that they have made, and they continue to make some. And of course, this isn't a trade, but it is some signings, and we'll go through each one as some of them are a little bit interesting. But let's start with the one that you guys are going to be most familiar with because I had a video on it there a few days ago. They've officially signed linebacker Joe Giles Harris off the practice squad to the active roster. Giles Harris, a second-year player, spent the first 7 games of the season on the Bengals practice squad, then was elevated from the practice squad to the active roster for Game 8 versus the New York Jets. And of course, they ultimately ended up losing that game. But in the video, feel free if you want to go check that one out after you've watched this one fully. But it's about, of course, there's depth at the linebacker position. And this Bengals team, there's no surprise. I've said it in the video earlier today, and I've said it throughout the weeks here. Their defense has some very big problems, but also just their depth in general isn't where it needs to be. So they've officially now signed Joe Giles Harris to the active roster for Sunday. So he will be available against the Chicago Bears. I mean, he's an okay player, right? He's basically a practice squad guy for the majority of his career. So seeing him up with the Bengals kind of goes to show more than anything their lack of depth. But nonetheless, it's something, right? And it's better than having a rookie out there who isn't ready at all. They've also, in order to do that, released defensive end Miles Cole from the practice squad. He was a second-year player and has been on the practice squad for a bit over a month now, which is it's actually quite interesting. They've also signed linebacker Liam Anderson, who is a first-year player, which is, I just mentioned rookie. He's a first-year player out of Holy Cross, and he's been interesting. He hasn't been with an NFL team yet, and they also signed another player as well. And you can see they're all linebackers. You can see the common theme here, and this is, of course, to provide them some depth at a position where they're lacking a little bit with, but B, we'll dive into some injury updates later in this video. They need some depth around the board. Defensively, they, of course, need a little bit of depth everywhere, and they made 3 signings that kind of show that, and, of course, one release. So let me know if you're familiar with either of those guys. Of course, Joe Giles Harris is the one who's probably most likely at this point for Sunday to get actual reps and actual snaps. He's a fairly serviceable player. We saw him briefly on Sunday against the Jets, so it's interesting at the end of the day here, and more moves are being made. And ahead of the trade deadline, of course, these things happen a lot, but a lot of that is due to some of the injuries, some of the trade requests to a guy like Logan Wilson. I'm fine bringing any new faces in with how bad that this team has been defensively, how bad they've been at tackling. Maybe we can find a diamond in the rough here, an undrafted player, something like that, or even a 4th-year player out of college just to see what they can, or out of university rather, see what they can do with this team, because can't really go down from here. A couple special teams players as well. And for Brian, you can see there, I kind of want to dive into him a little bit more. You could see he actually was drafted back in 2022 and has played over 46 games. So with the Vikings, he totaled 20 tackles, a bit of a special teams player as well. He started with the Vegas Raiders on their practice squad. So he's an interesting one. Probably him and Joe Giles Harris being the 2 most interesting guys out of the group. But he actually has a lot more NFL experience than some of these other guys, and he is, again, a 4th-year player out of Oklahoma. So let me know down below what your thoughts are on this, but let's also dive into some other things here. So both Hendrickson and Logan Wilson are both at Bengals practice today, but neither are in uniform, so we have no official designation for either of these guys. Logan Wilson is reportedly dealing with an injury. At the same time, he did request a trade. He hasn't been good at all. He did play against the Jets last week, but he didn't look great, right? Obviously, it was a pretty bad week for him. And then Trey Hendrickson, same thing. He started off playing and then ultimately left early. So they're both practicing, or at practice rather. Neither of them are in uniform. We'll keep you up to date as we inch closer and closer. It doesn't seem like at this point, I don't think Hendrickson's going to play it. We'll see about Logan Wilson, but a lot of these moves to get some more defensive players in obviously make some sense there. And I think they should be able to beat the Bears without Trey Hendrickson, especially with the Bears' injuries at this point. Rome Odunze and some other guys as well. Got to hope that they can. You never want to hope for an injury, obviously, but the Bengals could use a break, and they had a break last week against the Jets. They didn't have Garrett Wilson or some of their other guys, and they still lost that game. So at the end of the day, the team needs to play better and be a little bit better on that front. But speaking of kind of the man of the hour here, and that is Joe Flacco. He was practicing today and was throwing ahead of stretches. So at this point, it'll be interesting to see if he can actually play. We know Zach Wilson has come out, or Zach Taylor, sorry, has come out recently and said that he's going to do everything he can. It's 50-50 as of right now. And of course, things can change here. He could end up feeling really good after this practice. He could feel really, they're going to keep it private for as long as possible. I'm sure the alternative being Jake Browning is not one that a lot of fans, I'm sure, are looking forward to if it gets there. But to see him at least out there throwing, again, it is an injury that would affect his throwing. And of course, the fact that he is out there is very encouraging, and kind of similar to Trey Hendrickson and Logan Wilson, like having these guys at least at practice. It doesn't seem like any of the injuries are super serious. Trey Hendrickson's at the end of the day is going to be an ongoing thing, at least for now, because I mean, they played him in last week's game against the Jets. Obviously, it wasn't considered a must-win game at the time. The Bears is even more of a must-win if you want to keep your season alive. But Trey Hendrickson's under the last year of his contract here, so if they're going to need him at some point this year if they're trying to make a playoff run. I know a lot of guys out there don't think the Bengals are going to be able to do that, but regardless of what side of the fence you're on, he's a very good player. And hopefully Joe Flacco will be available, because it's going to be interesting to beg the question of, if Joe Burrow is able to return for the last 3 games, what is the worst W and loss record they could have for you to still have him start those games? And this is a question that Isaac and I discussed a few days ago. I mean, Isaac broke it down as, if they're in the playoffs, of course, you have to start him, unless Joe Flacco is having a generational run, which he kind of has to start his Bengals career, or his season this year with the Bengals once he got traded over. But at the same time, like, if they're out of a playoff race, we've seen it before where teams want to give him, especially when recovering from, in his case, turf toe, but any injury, wanting to give him some actual run just to get his feet underneath him before heading into a very crucial offseason following, of course, an injury recovery. But let me know down below the record. I mean, I think if they're 7-7, a lot of it depends on how the division's shaping out. If you're within a game or two of the division with 3 games left where there's like a mathematical chance for them to make the playoffs, I think if there's any sort of mathematical chance, they will keep him and play him, rather, if he's healthy. If not, and they're completely eliminated, they might just try to take it, slow. But the offensive line has been a lot better lately. A lot of it does come down to the offensive line. How much protection are they confident in that offensive line giving Joe Burrow? That's obviously a big question. And beyond that, kind of what happens here going forward with the team in general, because it's going to be interesting. You look at the Ravens and their upcoming schedule. Of course, the Ravens are, some people are saying, the biggest threat to a lot of the teams in the division, with Lamar Jackson playing tonight. Of course, playing the Dolphins, and then it'll be the Vikings, Browns, Jets. Very easy records, and they're getting Lamar Jackson back. So it's going to be tough. If you're the Bengals, you have to win. You have to go on a winning streak. The Bengals don't have a super difficult schedule either. It's pretty easy, especially when compared to the Steelers. But Steelers are at top right now. Got to keep things going, and hopefully Joe Flacco is going to come back here this week and be ready to go. But let me know down below what your thoughts are on all this, as well as the signing. Some very interesting names here. A couple of key guys, including former Vikings player. So it'll be interesting. Hopefully they can go ahead and take care of business here on Sunday.